If you've joined any pond prowler, tiny boat, or plastic pontoon Facebook group like I have, since I'm such a nerd about it, you're gonna know that people are constantly asking and debating. I mean, I'm talking about constantly, every single day in most of these groups. People are saying, what the hell? Why is there so many different options? What's the difference? There's a price difference, there's weight capacity difference, there's distribution differences, and there are differences to all of these boats. And what I have done is I have written down on my iPad all of the major players, price, weight capacity, size, and we're just kind of take a look at it. When I talk about them, I'm just going to pop it up on the screen so you know what I'm talking about, and we're just going to kind of discuss the features, and at the end I'm going to tell you what boat I think you should buy. Now personally, I have the Prowler 2, but it's the 10 foot, it's just the older model. And I love it. I love it. I have no desire to switch to anything else, but if I ended up finding a good deal on a bass raider, maybe I get that. Who knows? They're basically all functionally the same, but there are some differences that we should talk about, and hopefully this kind of helps you with your decision, and that way you're not stuck in analysis paralysis. You can just buy the daggone thing and get on the water. So first, let's talk about my boat, the Bass Pro Pond Prowler 10. So this boat comes in at $800, sold at Bass Pro in Cabela's, and it has a maximum weight capacity of 525 pounds. The length is 10 foot 2 inches. The width is 50 inches. This weighs about 130 pounds. It has a max rating of 3.5 horsepower or 40-pound thrust. Now, with the 40-pound thrust, I've ran 55-pound thrusters, and right now I have a 46-pound thrust. So it's a trolling motor. I mean, come on, you're not really gonna hurt it. If it can handle 3.5 horse, it can handle a 55-pound or 62-pound thrust trolling motor or whatever. Some people reinforce them to make them go faster, but at that point, you've got the wrong boat if you're trying to hit 20 miles an hour on this thing. That's a death wish. So let's talk about its exact carbon copy. And in fact, my boat looks way more like the Quest Angler than the Pond Prowler, but it is in fact a Pond Prowler. They come out of the same factory. But it's gonna be the Quest Angler from Dick's. So if you go to Bass Pro, it's gonna be the Pond Prowler. If you go to Dick's, it's gonna be the Quest Angler. But there is a little bit of a difference. The price. This thing is basically the same, but it's $880 at Dick's. So you're gonna pay $80 more, probably $100 after taxes. And maximum weight capacity is the exact same. It's 525. It says the length here is 10.3 foot on the Dick's website, but I don't think that's true. I think it's also 10.2 foot, the exact same width at 50 inches wide. This says it's coming in at 138 pounds, which I also don't really necessarily think is true. I think it's literally a carbon copy of the Pond Prowler. And the same with the 3.5 horse with the 40-pound thrust. So functionally, these things are identical. It kind of comes down to aesthetics. Do you want the gray? Do you want the kind of whitewash camo look from the Prowler? Or what are you looking for? And also availability and what is near to you. Now, I do want to make a quick pit stop here and talk about buying used. You guys have seen my boat a million times. That started as a $300 used Pond Prowler on Facebook Marketplace, less than I pay for a kayak or a paddleboard. So I do recommend buying used, but we are comparing everything from the factory so you can make your decision on the used market. Buy used. Anyway, let's talk about the next biggest contender and maybe the most popular option and what a lot of people really swear by. And that's gonna be the Pelican Bass Raider 10E NXT, coming in at $1,100. A little bit more expensive. So the max weight of this one is gonna be about 600 pounds. The length is gonna come in 2 inches shorter from the previous mentions at 10 foot, 50 inches wide. It's gonna weigh a little bit heavier at 145 pounds. I can't really find the horsepower rating or the trolling motor capacity rating, but I'm gonna assume it's basically the same. If not, maybe a little bit higher. These are uglier, but they are easier to modify since they're not sloped. They're more rigid angles, a lot easier to modify, I will say that. And they have nicer seats. The higher weight capacity, but they are heavier to carry. Now, here's the thing about the weight capacity. All the time I see in the group images and tests and all sorts of things of people pushing these Prowlers, 1,000+ pounds. You get two full-grown men, they're gonna reach the weight capacity before the motor, before the trolling motor, before the gear, before all that stuff, right? So the max weight capacity can be exceeded regularly. People do it all the time. I'm sure at some points, even though my wife and I don't weigh much, we bring a lot of gear, battery boxes, all sorts of fun stuff, anchors, we weigh it down and you might just move a little bit slower. So the weight capacity being 600 pounds on the Pelican Bass Raider, I don't think would justify an extra, $300? Personally, the $300 for an extra weight capacity that is probably going to be exceeded by everybody anyway is not worth the jump. You're basically paying for a different look, and the fact that it's not sloped, as you can see, you can drill directly into it a little bit better. Also, the gunnels on it are shorter, so I would be afraid of things falling into the boat a lot more. My Pond Prowler has higher gunnels, basically higher walls on the side to keep things from falling over, like tackle boxes and stuff like that. So that's personally why I went with the Pond Prowler. They're cheaper, and they're a little bit lighter to carry. The maximum weight is basically going to be the same, but it is a little bit harder to modify because it is so sloped, more like a regular boat versus this, which is like a rectangle. So there's going to be pros and cons, but it's going to be $300 more expensive before taxes and shipping. So definitely take that into consideration. Now we're going to move on to the Sundolphin 8.5 foot, and this is coming in at $530, a decent option for the budget conscious mini boater. But the max weight is going to be 515. The length is 103 inches. The width is the same at 50 inches. It only weighs 100 pounds. This one's easier to mod, but it's less comfortable with the seats and less room. So Bass Pro sells an 8-foot Pond Prowler for one person, and I've seen 2 people on it. It looks cramped. If you're going to buy the Sundolphin because it's cheaper and you can still fit 2 people, don't. Just buy a Prowler or a Bass Raider used. Get the 2 seats, get the extra 1.5 foot. It's going to make a world of difference. For $530, it's a pretty good deal, but like I said, odds are you can just find something at the same used price that's going to be better and look better. It's a decent option if that's what you have. But let's move into Bass Pro's attempt at making the smaller, more affordable version of the Pond Prowler. So this is the Pond Prowler 8, coming in at $630, and it's a single-seat, single-person vessel that I've seen multiple people fit in, but like I said, it's more cramped. So the max weight here is going to be 515 pounds. The length is 8 foot. I don't know the width, but I assume it's the same. I couldn't find it anywhere. It weighs 100 pounds. It is rated for up to a 2 horsepower or 40-pound thrust trolling motor, 1 seat only, easy to modify since it's flat surfaces, and it looks great. I really like this little boat. This is one of my favorite ones, and although I do recommend going ahead and getting the 10-footer, even if you ride solo, I go out on the boat solo all the time. I love having all that room, and it feels like a bigger boat. So I would recommend just spending a little bit extra money to get the 10, even if you're going to do it by yourself, and it's nice to have that extra seat if you need it. Now, finally, we're going to talk about Dick's Sporting Goods Quest Angler 8 version of it. Coming in at $680. Again, it's 515 pounds. The length on this one is actually 8.7. So again, Dick's seems to differentiate from other places. I don't know, might be 7 inches longer, but probably not. Anyway, the weight is 100 pounds. It's longer, does have 2 seats, and it's a better option if you do need a short one. So the 2 seats does lead me to believe it's a little bit longer. So this might actually be a better option if you are looking for something shorter. Maybe you have a super short truck bed, but my 10-foot fits in the back of my 6-foot truck bed, no problem. I think that this is probably worth the money more than the Pond Prowler 8, simply because you get another seat, and these seats are not easy or cheap to replace. You can spend anywhere from $100 to $300 on a good condition or new seat replacement. So paying an extra, $50 versus the Pond Prowler 8 is well worth having to spend a couple $100 extra to get a second seat. Now, for me personally, my top pick based off price, performance, and looks is the Pond Prowler 10. Although it's not as functionally easy to modify, I like the higher gunnels, I like the look of it, and I just love my boat. I bought mine for $300 used, and that came with upgraded seats that were like $120, pull handles, rod holders, or not rod holders, paddle holders with a paddle, and just all sorts of fun upgrades for $300. Point being is a lot of these are the similars, and the minute differences might shift why you go with one boat versus the other. But rest assured, no matter what you get, you're gonna have a great time catching lots of fish. Happy boating.